Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. This is BRN AM for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. And our top story today, Secure 2.0. What's effective January 1st, 2024? And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Mary Morris is the Chief Executive Officer of Virginia 529. Mary, always great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Be with you.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you towards the end of the year. Mary, we're about to hit 2024, and Secure 2.0 is a huge piece of legislation. It has such a big impact, but it has an impact on educational 529 plans. Let's take a look at that. I mean, what changed or what is changing effective 2024 around 529s and the integration with retirement?
Right. It's going to be interesting to see how big a deal it is. I think, there's some skeptics that think it's really not going to be that big a thing. I think they may be surprised. There was a relatively small piece of Secure 2.0 provides something that we've worked for a number of years in the 529 industry to allow some transition, some kind of rollover or contribution from a 529 account to a Roth IRA. For years we hear there are ways in which people can use a Roth to help fund education, and that's fine, but you've never had that reciprocal piece. So I think this fits that bill and addresses something that we've had for years, people being afraid of putting too much into their 529 for fear it gets stuck there. And so this is yet another way that people can move money from a 529, should they find the need at some point in the future, into a Roth IRA. So it's a limited ability to move money from a 529 to a Roth IRA at its simplest. There are some rules around that, but I think it's a really nice planning opportunity for people. And it just takes away that mostly unfounded fear of money being stuck in a 529 and then there being a negative financial result because of that.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. I think there's a big piece that I think people are going to like, and just like in the retirement plan world, you're able to take withdrawals under certain provisions, and that helps people feel comfortable putting money away for a period of time. This integration, I think we've all been looking for this because benefits to people. They don't think about, hey, I've got my 529 plan over here, I've got my healthcare savings account over here, and I've got my retirement over here. They see them all together. So I tend to agree with you. Mary, I want to ask you about some of the rules. Let's talk about some of the basics here. How long do you have to hold the money upon rollover? I mean, is it traditional, the 5 years like you would under Roth, or are there different provisions?
No. So in some of this, we're not 100% sure, but the industry has really come together, and that's, I think, been a really nice thing that Virginia 529 and our colleagues across the country have spent a lot of time talking about this and trying to interpret. We have requested guidance from Treasury. We anticipate it coming sometime in 2024. But the rule takes effect January 1, 2024. So we have had to make some assumptions, and we've done that. And that's based on what we heard from Congress was congressional intent. It is based on the way we run 529 programs. So we think we're right, but we don't know 100%. What we do know is that the account has to have been established for at least 15 years. Now, what we've interpreted is that it doesn't have to be the exact same account with the same account owner and the same beneficiary for 15 years. There's a relating back, and that's typical for a 529 account because there's a lot of flexibility to change an account owner or a beneficiary for a 529 account. So as long as you can trace an account for 15 years, our interpretation is that will work for purposes of the Roth rollover or transition. That's another characterization. Everything we can tell, and the new rules for the form to report on a Roth contribution seems to support this, that it will be treated as a contribution, that is new money to the Roth. So you won't need to be tracing whether it's earnings or your principal was when you roll it over, which you would in a rollover. So even though the language of the statute uses rollover, transfer, and contribution, which makes it a little bit confusing, the interpretation is that this will be considered for Roth purposes as contribution of new money, although we will be reporting out to folks what the breakdown is between contributions and earnings when we send the distribution. So that's a little bit of a complexity. There's a 5-year rule that I hope doesn't confuse people too much, but it basically just looks and says the money has to have been, or some money has to have been in your 529 account for 5 years prior to the Roth contribution. So it isn't a question of how you can use it or how long it has to be in that Roth account so much as when you can move the money from the 529. There's a $35,000 maximum contribution from 529 to Roth, and that's per individual. That's a lifetime cap that has to be transferred annually. So you can't exceed the Roth contribution, which goes up to 7,000. I think that's right in 2024 for an individual. So you can do it over a number of years. And then the other requirement is that whatever amount you're contributing has to have essentially been in the account 5 years prior to the contribution to the Roth. So you sort of look at what was in your 529 account. Let's say you had $35,000 in there, 2018. Then as of January 1, 2024, you could start rolling over all of that money. It would take you, whatever it would take you, 5 years to do that, because you have to do it in $7,000 increments. If there's more money over that, again, this is one where we don't necessarily have clarity that 5 years should continue to roll. So it feels like a planning opportunity to make sure that you've got that $35,000 in there over time, as long as you pay attention to that 5-year rule. And all of it is just designed to prevent people from, dumping money into a 529 account and then moving it to a Roth right away. And so, do I think the rules are maybe a little more complicated than they needed to be? Yes. That happens sometimes with federal legislation, but I think if you just sort of think about it, work through it, work with a financial advisor, your accountant, whoever you work with on this type of thing, if you don't do it yourself, you can figure it out. But we think there's a lot of flexibility, and we're trying to build that in. The other thing to think about is that it doesn't really matter so much who the account owner is, but you have to have a matching between the 529 beneficiary and the owner of the Roth IRA. So in most instances, that would be the student. And I think it's a wonderful planning opportunity, because we know that young people don't start saving early enough in general for retirement. And so this is a way, I think, for a parent to jumpstart it. If they end up with a few dollars left in a 529 account, if they're lucky enough to have that happen after their student, finishes college and they think they're done and they want to make that transfer, then you could fund a Roth IRA just to get them started. And I think that it might sit there, who knows what'll happen to it, but it's just a nice planning opportunity to get that jump started. But again, another interpretation that we've made is that there are no restrictions on changing beneficiaries in your 529 account. There are no tax implications as long as you do it within your family tree, basically up and down the family tree. So if an account owner changes the beneficiary to themselves, then when they make that Roth transfer, the beneficiary at the time would be the account owner, and then you could fund the Roth for yourself. So for someone who has maybe funded their children's education and said, oh, but I didn't put quite enough into my own retirement, it's an opportunity, again, limited, but an opportunity to put some of that money back into your retirement fund by making those changes. So a few complexities in it, but some nice planning opportunities.
Absolutely, Mary. Any sense before we go to commercial break? Any sense on when we collectively might get some final regs? I know the Senate and the House came up with some technical corrections, which always happens on these big omnibus level bills, right? There's always things that weren't specifically specified in the bill come up during the industry conversations. Any idea when kind of all the things you're describing, the final piece? And we're coming up to the end of the year, Barry. DOL.
Not before the end of the year. We don't expect that. And the technical corrections did not address these threshold questions. And the main ones really are making sure that that 15-year relates back. We feel pretty comfortable with that. Again, that's every indication is that that is correct. That's what we'll be doing. And I also feel confident that if Treasury should decide we're wrong, there'll be an opportunity to fix it. That they will allow us, if we're giving advice, telling people we think you can do this, and we're allowing them to do it. Treasury is usually pretty good at providing a window to undo or to fix whatever happens. So I'm not too concerned about that. That's the main one, that and the changing of the beneficiary. And again, there's just no indication and there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to change the beneficiary, because we've always been able to do that for 529 accounts for all other 529 purposes. So to me, it just makes sense. But they've said sometime in 2024. So that's when we anticipate it. But whether that's going to be early in 24 or later, no clue. Don't have any indication on that.
Look, all these folks have a lot on their plate. We've got a fiduciary rule coming down the pike, a hearing coming up. So there's going to be a lot from that. Mary, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about checking on your retirement account at year end. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Well, Mary, thanks so much for staying with us. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2 this morning. Well, Mary, we're going to switch gears a little bit. And look, I think that these programs have become more and more integrated. But let's talk about 2024 is right on the horizon, a couple weeks away. What are some things you need to think about in terms of checking your retirement where you are? And I'm not talking about someone who's pre-retirement. I'm talking about the youngins out there who are just starting to work. What should they be thinking about when you're taking a look and trying to recalibrate your retirement planning in 2024?
Well, and I'm not the retirement expert, but have a few thoughts on that, and just basic good financial strategies, right? No matter what it is. And the end of the year is always a good time. It's a good time for that kind of messaging, either doing it at the end of the year or right after the first of the year. We all get good intentions. We have our New Year's resolutions. And so getting your financial house in order is always a good resolution. And some of that's just figuring it out. And I have to remind myself, just check the status of your account. I think it's good to not check your retirement savings in particular too often, because you can make yourself a little bit crazy when the markets are moving and when there's volatility. What was it? October was a pretty terrible month. November was a really great month.
Yeah.
So the accounts move around a lot, and retirement savings are long-term savings. So, you don't want to monitor it daily, I don't think, unless you can just weather that and you're really interested. For most people, but at least once a year, you should really look and see, what's my account been doing, and get a sense with a little bit longer horizon of is it doing what you want it to do? And so that means taking a look at your investments. And again, for anybody, if you're not comfortable with that, if you don't know much about it, then get some help. And there are ways to do that. There are inexpensive ways. There are all kinds of things. There's information on the internet. You may have a trusted financial advisor, someone in your family who understands this stuff, but just take a look and think about, is my investment right? Hopefully most people are in something that will move with them, so they don't have to think about it too much. Most retirement savings are in target date funds. So they're going to evolve over time, but there's still nuances within that, and there are options. So just make sure that it feels right for you. And different philosophies on what's right as you reach middle age. That's when you may be amassing the largest amount of retirement savings. That's, for most people, that's when your earning power is at its peak. So you want to look and say, am I putting enough in for retirement? Can I jumpstart it a little bit? Can I put more in? Can I increase my contribution? Take a look and make sure that you're taking advantage of any match that your employer might provide. Not everyone gets that, but if you do, don't leave money on the table if you can avoid that, right? So at least put in enough to get the full match, whatever that is. If you can do more, particularly as you get going in your career, it's a good time to do that. When you're younger, sometimes it's easier because you haven't gotten used to having the money available. So as your salary increases, take a little bit of it and put it into retirement. You won't feel it as much. If you get used to having the income, it's harder to say, oh, now I'm going to put that money aside. So have your retirement planning move with you as hopefully your career trajectory goes up and your earnings go up. So those are some good things to take a look at, and just understand what you're invested in. Because some people, if they're in a program and the default was, I don't know, a money market account. Right now, money market's not a terrible place to be. But typically, that's not where you want to be for a 20, 30, 40-year horizon. It's not going to do as well in terms of return. So just make sure that you didn't forget to make an election, that you're in the right type of investment mix for where you are on your personal journey and what you want to do. How early do you want to retire? Some people have a goal of retiring very young. Well, to do that, you need to really maximize your retirement savings. I've been one. I like working, so I've already been in there a while. I'm past my sell-by date, some would already say. So you can think about that. Are you able to continue working? How much you fund, and when you start moving your retirement fund into something that is less volatile. That's, I think, been a real shift in retirement savings in recent years. It used to be you'd be very conservative in all of your investments right when you retired. But for most people, if you hit 65 or 70, you're going to have, hopefully, I got my fingers crossed on that one, another 15, 20, 25 years. So your savings has to go further than maybe it did 30 years ago, when the life expectancy was not quite as long, and the needs in retirement are going to be there. So again, those are complicated things. And so reading about it yourself, talking to somebody that you trust, talking to somebody who understands this can be really helpful to make sure that you've made good financial decisions that will take care of you, while you're working and as you're preparing for that ultimate retirement, and then will take you all the way through those, hopefully a nice, long, healthy and productive retirement, and having enough money in the bank and enough money to spend is good for that.
Well, Mary, I don't think you're anywhere close to your or past your sell-by date. But I want to ask you one other thing. I picked up on the last segment. You talked about the beneficiary. A lot of us go through, life has different changes. You might get married, you might get divorced, you might have children. That beneficiary designation is so important. And it's something that people don't really think about. So one of the things that you need to think about, in addition to your investments and your asset allocation and how much income you're going to have at retirement, what about the beneficiary designation? If you just had kids, you have a new wife or spouse.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably
That's a
important.
great point. That's a great point. Because right, what if, and maybe the worst example is if you are divorced, whether you've remarried or not, and that former spouse is the beneficiary of your retirement savings and your estate. So again, putting that all together, it's a good time to take a look at your estate plan. End of the year, beginning of the year is a great time to take stock. So take a look, make sure, a lot of places now force you into looking at your profile. When you go in any kind of an account, look at your profile. Make sure that the phone number is still up to date. Make sure they have a good email address. People change their email addresses fairly frequently now. That can really complicate getting your money out when you need it, communicating, being able to log into your account if your credentials aren't right. So you absolutely want to take a look at that. Look at your beneficiaries. Are all your children accounted for? Do you have the right designated beneficiary? That's true for your 529 account. That's true for your retirement account, for your disability savings account if you have one. You want to check all of those things and make sure that everything's up to date, that you're saving an appropriate amount, that you know where your money is. Another thing is just making sure that somebody else in your family knows how to access that in the event of your illness or your death. Thinking about as you get older, having a power of attorney, for whether it's your spouse or an adult child or someone like that, so that if you are incapacitated for short term or long term, someone can help manage your affairs, can have access to your retirement accounts and to understand where you are. Insurance is another piece of that, whether you use insurance for your retirement planning. There's a lot. It's complicated and that can be overwhelming. So as you say on most things, and I say it to myself, take a breath, do it one step at a time, but take some time here at the end of the year. And, if this is too busy a time in December, then, make that note and say my New Year's resolution is going to be that during that quiet time in January when it still gets dark too early and it's cold outside, or just the weather isn't what you want it to be, take some time to spend online, spend with your papers, and get that financial house in order.
Yeah, really, really important. And, it's something you should do at least once a year. Mary, we're going to have to leave it there. Wishing you a very happy new year. We look forward to talking to you again in 2024.
Same to you. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Mary. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective, and wishing you, your family, and your colleagues a very happy new year and happy holiday season. And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Well, visit our website. We're back again tomorrow with another great edition of BRN AM of a very special guest. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
But if you're tired of the same
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.